became a quite a intense topic of deliberation in last 4 or 5 years of time, basically, right? Especially after Snowden revelation, where people started questioning this model, where the entire planetary data or the entire population of the world on the application, and in a way, kind of a monopoly that basically you establish with that, basically, right? And this was really got challenged, and the people are trying to find solution for this, basically, right? And that solutions comes as a very decentralized vision future that people started seeing. And this decentralization largely was possible not because of Bitcoin, but Bitcoin was a largely triggering point for this, basically. Right? We all know, all right, Bitcoin is a very decentralized network where the blocks basically, and those blocks under the coin that you mine basically. So those transaction which will happen on more decentralized nature. There's no central entity there basically, right? And then Ethereum came, and Ethereum bought this kind of a virtual transaction processing machine where you can process transaction on that block. So every transaction is a kind of block, and that block basically you keep adding to the number of transactions basically. So there is no central control here basically. There's nobody centrally owning this basically, right? It's a maybe community owning this basically, right? So this decentralization became a kind of a talk where people started lay down a lot of application basically. In fact, I run one class on a understanding blockchain, crypto, and entire ecosystem basically, right? But there's not much time today to discuss on that. But there is this foundational thing, right? Foundational thing is your ability to do transaction and store that in a blocks. And everybody's transaction stores in a blocks basically, right? And this is a very decentralized way of doing this basically. And then this Web 3.0 really brought this ability of somebody to get hold of their data. Very easy understanding of this. So rather than I go and onboard to a particular application, I have my own identity. So what happens in a typical way, all of us go and onboard with application, be it a bank, be it any social media application basically, right? And then after that, we start transaction, exchanging, sharing basically, right? In case of Web 3.0, what happens? Here there was very interesting concept of self-sovereign identity. Anybody knows? So in the Web 2.0, our identity is controlled by that application. With our whatever credential we give, that identity is controlled by that application. In case of this particular system, the identity is a self-sovereign identity. Anybody knows what is the meaning of what is SSI? Self-sovereign, right? You control your identity, or you control the all transaction, and you have that ownership on that identity basically. So what happens basically? So there are some platforms which are also laid down. In those platforms, what happened that people would create their identity, they will put in a block, and rather than somebody, I go and onboard to a particular application, that application will onboard with me. So that's the very idealistic view, right? I have created my KYC identity basically, and I onboard all of this application. So here, individual me is a owner of that basically, right? So that is how the Web 3.0. But then what happened with that Web 3.0 is, who the person or the organizations or individual which are putting those blocks, putting those decentralized network, putting those applications basically. So they need to earn something, right? And that's why token ecosystems come into picture. So that's why crypto tokens started coming in picture. And there are thousands and lakhs of tokens nowadays available, right? So then after putting these blocks to do particular things, so I remember there is a storage, STORJ, that is one application where we all are worried about data getting stored in one location. So they brought this decentralized way of storage. So what I do means what you do basically, as an individual participant to that network, you give 20 GBs of your hard disk to that network. And that will be used and distributed by this application. And the data will be stored on that basically. While giving the 20 GB, what you get a token of the storage token basically. I own some storage token basically. I try to do 20 GB to that network basically, right? And then many more people start using it. This token value get increased, and more importantly, token also get traded on their markets, right? Crypto markets basically, right? And because of that, valuation also goes basically. So that's what started happening. So all of these Solana, Ethereum, and so many such kind of tokens that we talk about, right? Avalanche, Solana, Polkadot, Polygon is our own startup based out of Pune, although they moved to Dubai some years back. So all of them started putting with different applications like this basically. And there is an architecture for that, how that architecture work. But there was a basic problem of a speed of transaction basically. So the speed of transaction in Web 3.0, especially the blockchain, was quite slow. And that's why it was not being used in a various different transactions. And there are a lot of challenges with respect to who controls, who governs it basically. If it is everything decentralized basically, a lot of questions started coming in picture. In fact, a lot of fraud started seeing. Means there was a UN report that 20% of all the serious kind of frauds, the cryptocurrency is being used as one of the way to pass on those benefits basically, right? So that's Web 3.0 basically, right? But it has brought a lot of these interesting ideas of how you can make the system more decentralized. How can you pass on the control of your identity, of your information to the user? How can you make user more owner or give control back to user basically? Because right now in the Web 2.0 as we are in, so most of the control resides with somebody who's put together application there, right? So that was a paradigm that we are in. So currently we are largely Web 2.0. Web 3.0 is definitely there. People are still going, still buying, still doing transactions, still putting together some of the applications as well. And there are very interesting kind of applications are coming basically. People can take a loan, people can put a deposit, people can do a lot of those transactions. Still that is happening basically. The entire metaverse, NFT, some of you must be doing NFT, right? Non-fungible token basically. So all of those transactions are happening on a blockchain Web 3.0 basically, right? So this paradigm, Web 3.0 as we discussed, has its own limitation I just talked about, right? And another important thing that we also learn in Web 2.0 is Web 2.0 is became more semantic, right? Very natural to engage, very natural to talk to each other basically, right? And eventually this relation, that semantic relation that we talk about, right? The systems behave more like a user or more like a human, basically. So Web 2.0 brings that advantage to table, basically. So there is a tremendous amount of benefit of a Web 2.0 as well, because somebody should be there as well to control, to help you put that infrastructure, to take care of those experiences, take care of those governance requirements, take care of those compliance requirements, basically, right? So there are a lot of benefits that Web 2.0 also brings to the table, right? And there are benefits that Web 3.0 also brings to the table, basically. And if you try to merge these two technologies together, Web 2.0 and 3.0, you get a Web 5.0, basically. Right? Any doubt on this? Any question, anything that you can think about? So why we are talking about Web 3.0, Web 2.0? Yeah, so 3 is most decentralization, 2 was more centralization of a control. Both have their own benefit, but can you merge these two together so that you can get benefit of the both of the world, basically? Because 3.0 is entirely this community, right? I mean, there is if you talk about it in a philosophical term, you always talk about there's a libertarian view, right? Anarchist libertarian view, basically, right? So they don't believe in the system. They don't believe in the players of the system, basically. Web 3.0 is that system where it is challenge the monopoly, challenge this control-based way of doing things, basically. And they brought together this Web 3.0. But it may leading to anarchy, right? A lot of countries in India as well. So we have a problem with the cryptocurrency. We have a problem with this control getting lost, basically, right? And that's why we had very conservative approach towards that, and many countries across the globe, every country is going to approach about that basically. I mean, countries are looking about cryptocurrency, but not such kind of thing. They are the central banks, Reserve Bank for that matter, is thinking about CBDC, already probably launched some part of it. Other countries also thinking about it basically, right? So if you try to bring benefit of this both together, probably then you can achieve many things. So let's try to understand this from the basics, right? This evolution of a wave 5.0 and where it will be, right? So around 90s, we looked at the PC came, the network came. So we all know that DARPA did some experiments and they realized that this way the exchange information can be passed, right? And after that, then this networking, when it came, so the web 1.0, an entire .com age started after that, right? So 1.0 is largely between 90s to 2000, and even it goes beyond 2000 as well. And that is the area where a lot of investment came into internet technology. A lot of companies got created, and there was a burst as well, .com burst as well. We all have seen that, right? And after Y2K, probably we again regroup ourselves as a technology community, right? Then good part is this multimedia application started coming in. Web 2.0 is largely interesting. We are still into Web 2.0 age, where entire broadband, semantic technology, artificial intelligence started coming into the picture. And there is another interesting branch here, basically, which is probably taking to Web 2.0 because of cloud computing, because of broadband, because of mobile computing. So that branch probably may go, but largely we are looking at going to Web 2 4.0 or Web 5.0. So 4.0 is largely mobile web, basically, people talk about. So 5.0 is this merging of a Web 2.0 and Web 3.0, basically, getting these two technologies together. So what this leads to, basically, right? So they say that, what is the world that we see now? What we are seeing now is largely, there is something called as a concept as AI native interface. Anybody knows what is AI native interface? What is AI native interface? Yeah, but what do you mean by AI native interface? So interface primarily is AI native. Means what? Yeah, so what it really says, until now what is to happen, right? So what is still happening, right? So we are either we are typing something, we are browsing something, we are clicking something, right? Swapping something. So these are actions we are taking. So these are the interfaces, basically, right? And these interfaces are the interactions that you have with the systems, basically, right? But for a very novice user or for the users, this is still difficult, right? It's still difficult to enter, still difficult to click, still difficult to really put text together in those back boxes coming in, basically, right? So anybody has seen that new mobile phone, somebody came from, there is a rabbit, right? So, which is like without displayless mobile phone, right? A small mobile, basically, right? What that means is, AI native interfaces ki you create an interface which is human-like. Means you talk to system, or you express something and system will respond to you, basically, right? So it's more human-like interface ecosystem, and in AI ecosystem, basically, right? What happens is your ability, and that's what happened, right? With ChatGPT, anybody can ask a question to ChatGPT in any language, it gives the answer, right? You can talk to ChatGPT, right? So, moment you bring down the skill or cognitive requirement to interface with the system, basically, right? Then those systems behave like a human, basically, right? And this is where the entire world will be going. The next thing which is happening in AI, interface design is how do you design the interface more native, AI native interface basically. And most of the applications are going for that basically. Everybody is putting chatbot for that. Chatbot will be the early stage of that, right? You put a chart and the chart would give the answers. Most of us struggle, right? DSA has one application and we want people to access it. But for people to access it, you need to ask that question in a particular keyword, or you need to browse that to the extent possible, right? But the keyword matching is a big problem, basically. We know that in our organization ecosystem, there's so much of data. If you are working there for 15, 20 years, there's so much of data, so much of things together, right? It's very difficult for you to retrieve that information at a given point in time, basically. Even if you can interact as an individual, but can external party can retrieve that information, basically, right? So AI does one important thing, basically, right? It works on your information. It works on your knowledge base. One part of the AI is it works on your knowledge base. And that is what called as a RAG system that if you have built basically in the organization, right? It works on your knowledge base, works on whatever all that you have in the organization. And in a way that very simple, normal language, if anybody asks a question and there's something relevant in the organization, it will give answer to you basically. That's what the chatbots that we are, AI chatbot that we are setting together, right? We create knowledge base. On top of that, we use LLM capability and it gives the answer to every question asked in any language, any different way basically. Millions different way. Google talks about millions of tokens it can process. A millions different way you can ask information and it can give the answer basically. So it is not limited to this way. It is not limited to this thing. It is not limited to this keyword basically, right? So that interface is called as an AI native interface basically. And these interactions are relationship. These interactions are relationship called as a semantic relationship. Without much of those formal, very different way you can interact with system basically. No matter which language, no matter how you are asking, no matter which way you are putting together, right? So this semantic relationship is where the world is now, right? Where people can use those technologies to create these AI native interfaces. And if you understand LLM operations, if anybody has worked on LLM ops for that matter, LLM operations basically, or LAM for that matter, large action models for that matter, or RAG. What is RAG? RAG? Anybody knows? So retrieval augmented generation. There is generation, planetary level generation is happening, right? ChatGPT, Bard, Gemini, and many such Anthropic, and many such, there are 650,000 models. All of them are generating something. So this generation is happening. But that generation is based on the publicly available data. But you can augment that generation. You can augment that generation retrieving from your information, retrieving from your knowledge base basically. You put your knowledge base and based on that knowledge, you can augment that generation because that generation is still publicly available data. So you can augment that generation and that's why people are setting a LLM ops basically. So more significant part of current day is a RAG. You set up a RAG you set up and RAG will take care of all of this thing and people are putting together a lot of interesting idea for that basically, right? So there are a lot of new thing which is happening is a graphical neural network using that to generate RAG, right? And that will be very precise in terms of giving answers, basically. A lot of experimentations happening in that direction, right? So this is where the world is. The AI native interface I talked about. Every organization, you will see going for this. Everybody is putting together something like that. DSA has also set up a team to do something on that. So we have a lot of knowledge base available for the last 15, 20 years. There's an application called TechSagar. We are trying to look at how we build the AI native interface to all of those applications of the ACI or whatever application we build for the government as well, right? This is how the world is basically. But Web 5.0 goes one step ahead. So what it does, it also brings emotional web. So what do we mean by that? Yeah, so there are little bit happening right now, but what you are doing is, for example, many application that you have, right? you do emoji. And there are hundreds different type now emojis are coming. So in Smile Main, there are 10, 15, 20 different emojis, right? Because you don't smile at one type, right? You smile in different way, basically. You cry different way, you be sad different way, basically. So emojis are helping. Emojis are helping you, and this is one of the important part of Web 2.0, right? You can capture images, emotions, basically. People can, by seeing a particular thing, by observing something, or by reflecting on some development, people can say, okay, I'm happy with this. I'm feeling glad about this. I'm feeling elated about this, basically. I'm feeling sad about this, basically. How much sad you are feeling out of it. So these emotions are getting captured, right? And Web 2.0 is capturing this. In fact, whatever you type, whatever you click, how you browse, what you like, basically, and how you express is getting captured. So your emotions are getting captured here, basically, right? So imagine, and now whatever is used can be captured, because the AI network interface will largely depend on what you talk to the systems, and whatever you're saying is also getting captured, basically, right? So what is happening here is you are capturing all possible thing. Our life, large part of our life is still a physical in nature, right? But now we are trying to say that every aspect of the life is getting digitally captured. Your emotions are getting captured as well, right? If that is getting captured, it may possible that, and that is getting captured and stored on a location. And that location, that storage is controlled by somebody. Somebody will get benefit out of it, basically, right? By just seeing you like a particular thing, or you see a particular thing for that matter, you know that the platforms use is to provide more such kind of content. You advertise me, for example, I looked at for example, I was looking at real estate market in Noida Expressway, right? Moment I see it somewhere, every of my platform shows me advertise about some commercial offering there, right? So this is how the data, and this, remember me, this can be done without even compromising privacy nowadays, basically. So anonymization, cryptography technologies change in such a way that without even Google knowing, Facebook knowing, many other platforms knowing, this can be still done, basically, right? But the emotions added, then you're adding a lot of those part of your life, you're digitizing it, basically, by giving those emotions, basically, right? So then more and more such kind of things that are getting captured about you, and more stored somewhere at the cloud, basically. More and more, there is a very interesting idea, right? Some of you probably must have reflected, there is in our data protection bill, digital personal data protection bill, we have this right to nomination as one of the right. Have you reflected on that? Have you observed that? So there is different rights, and there is a right to nomination as well. Means for your personal data protection right, you can nominate somebody to exercise those rights. So what is the meaning of that, right? Means if data is there and you are incapacitated or you are not there, then you can nominate somebody to exercise right on that right. Means you remain with your data, right? You may not remain, but through that data you may remain. We say our spirit is independent of our body. So this is Atma in terms of data. So data Atma, right? So, and then somebody can make a call. You being not there, somebody can make a call that if situation happened like that, how would I have felt? And the data can give that answer, basically, right? So you can remain with your data, basically, right? So because of so much of data about you are captured, so much information is captured, now emotions are getting captured, basically, right? So you remain with it, basically, right? And you remain with as a data. And after you, the call can be made. After you call can be the answers can be given. And there are very interesting movies in our web series on this. The 100 is the web series which talks about this basically. You can get a dump of you and recreate yourself in another body. So the science fiction takes it to the different level altogether. Basically, the 100 is the very interesting web series in this basically, right? So where you take a dump of your you as a data dump, and you take it to other body as well. So and you can recreate yourself. So Avatar projects talks about those basically, right? There is already projects on this line. So once such a information about you are captured, and now there's another thing which are happening now, right? There are a lot of sensors coming in our body. The neural link is coming in your brain, right? There are a lot of variables that you will be wearing, basically, right? So your watch would have a lot of sensors coming future, basically. So then, with your emotion, you may not require to talk to system. With your emotion, you can make system work. So thought-driven actions for that matter. There's already experimentation happening. Just by your thought, you control the system's behavior, not even need to talk to system, type to it, or enter something basically, right? So in that case, things will still going further, right? It will go to the next level, right? Means biology integration with IT, integration of biotechnology with IT, or this entire emotions or actions, thought, driven actions, means a lot of those digitization would happen. Digitization about thought would happen basically, right? Because of the way things are evolving. There's already neural link, there is already successful example of that, right? There are a lot of sensors which are coming in. There are a lot of sensors which are getting inserted in body. So it means now we are going into new paradigm. In that paradigm, much more information about the individual will be captured. And if you go with the paradigm of Web 2.0, then you create a big challenges there, right? Because then just imagine we are so concerned about current way of data, all of our data getting owned by one organization. What will happen if such kind of information come into picture? So that is the reason this Jack Dorsey, which was a Twitter founder, he's thought about, let me bring this Web 2.0, which brings all of these possibilities, right? Emotion capturing, all of this AI, all of this to on one go, and also some responsible way of processing with the data centers and big kind of investment on one go, and the ideas of Web 3.0 on other go, where the control of this data is passed on to the user. Or user is sole, there are still, SSI is there, but SSI is not till full-fledged in terms of calling it is a pure play SSI, self-sovereign identity basically. I make SSI, I make an individual as a owner, individual owns it basically, right? And at the same time, I offer all of those emotional web. So next web is called as an emotional web. Means you interact with your emotions basically. So apart from Web 2.0 and 3.0 basically, you also bring emotional web into the picture basically. And 6, 7, 8 years down the line, this is how the world will look like basically, right? This is how the things would be evolving basically. So that is the world basically, right? So eventually we would be putting together all of these possibilities, and while we go for such kind of a data of us getting captured, including our biological parameters, including our emotions, now you need not have to just say emoji. They are saying emoji will be passed. It will be your seeing me. When you interact with system by seeing your faces, the things will be known basically. By just understanding which way you are talking, the tone of your voice, it will recognize you are sad or you are probably not feeling well, or you are probably scared, or you're probably very happy. So this is how the things would react to you basically, right? And when it reacts, in that case, just imagine the paradigm and the possibilities of data that will get captured, and to the extent data will get captured basically. And that's why making people owner to the data is a key dream of a Web3. So bring that to this entire things that are evolving as a natural course, basically, right? So that is the basic idea of Web 0.0, basically, right? And then how this will change, right? I mean, how this will change the transactions, basically, right? So there are a lot of possibility, human and machine, how they will intermingle with respect to many things happen, emotions, biology, technology, computing technology. There are a lot of computing also. There is neuromorphic computing that people talk about. And then overall, this entire interfaces that are getting, there is interfaces which are connecting. There is a systems like there are a lot of biometrics systems which also capture a lot of things, basically. But systems can be capturing your emotions and your thing as well. So this world that we probably will be going in coming time, 6, 7, and 8 years of the time, because there are a lot of experimentations are happening. People are already going for that. The Rabbit, that mobile was a quite interesting example, right? Now people are talking about most of the thing can be displayless as well. Why you need display? But that is still an AI interface, basically. Eventually, it will go to the interface where you would, all that we have seen in some of the, you must have seen some of this thing in some of the uh, futuristic movie, right? But probably that would be the reality. And there are serious effort which is going on this to develop standard, to look at different possibilities. Web3 people are joining hand with Web2 people to work on some of those possibilities, right? So the project that Jacques Darcy is working on this, and there are a lot of effort which are going in this. And fortunately, but now it's unfortunate, we had quite a good talent in this country on Web3, but because of some of the policy discussion that policy standing we had, so many of that organizations in which were there in Web3 or crypto token, there's a token economy, right? The token economy startup in India quite significantly, but most of them have moved out to other geographies. But we certainly have quite a good Web3 talent. And Web2 also, we support a lot of those effort, basically. So we need to find now what that means to transaction processing, for that matter. What that means for the payment, for that matter, basically. What that means for different things that we do it now, basically. And try to create those use cases, basically, right now. On those use cases, basically, which can help us at least to traverse what is happening. Because I still sometimes feel that people still don't know. A lot of things happen in last 5, 6, 7, 8 years of time, which is to Web3, basically, right? But we still lack our understanding about what do you mean by Web3. I do a master class on Web3. I did a couple of master classes on Web3 in Delhi, not in this part of the globe. But the word, basically, but understanding the technology, understanding fundamentals of that, understanding how it interacts, and that's where the opportunity, that's where the possibility comes into picture, basically. So this session is largely make a little bit awareness about first is Web3 and Web5, basically, so that we all probably try to understand what is happening. There are already almost, this concept is not new concept. So since last year things have started, after he moved out of Twitter, he started working on this. And there are a lot of, n number of people are working together to make some of those are concept in reality, basically. And this is creating parallel world. Means current ecosystem is very central processing driven ecosystem, is creating a decentralized way, but at the same time not depriving people of the benefit that we see with respect to AI, with respect to emotional web, for that matter, coming future. So merging all of this together and trying to see how this technology will evolve, basically. So our role here is like, how do you understand this better? How do you understand in different contexts, basically? From social media perspective, for that matter, how we interact and engage, for that matter, how do will do transaction, for that matter, how do you interact, how do you make this kind of technologies to work for any people, any person, basically. For example, financial inclusion, for that matter, basically. So how do you do all of these context, all of these use cases, basically? How do you make use of this, basically? So that's the basic idea, and that's what the basic intent of the session. We have 5 minutes if you have any question or doubt, so that we can conclude by 9:30. Hope this was useful. for normal those transactions that we have been doing basically. Right? But if technology can give you better answer to that, you can still process emotion with user being owner of their own data, then that could be answer to those concerns basically, right? So can technology find solution to this? Can this Web 5.0 basic attributes of Web 5.0 can find solutions for that basically? So that's the matter to be seen, how this will evolve, and eventually, if technology takes care of those concerns expressed, this approach takes care of the concerns expressed, maybe the regulatory approach to us may get changed. Any other? Yes, sir. I'll come to you. Yeah.
So they say, communication is 90% non-verbal. Is that what they are trying to capture the emotions for? I mean, so that.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is the interface, the way you interact, either you type, you browse, you click. So that may not require. Eventually, it's going now. People talking it, but now people are saying you did not even talk. Your thought, your emotion should control the systems as well. It should go beyond that actually.
My question is related to the technology change that's happening and privacy, clear violation of privacy happening. And then when we want to start implementing rights, like right to access, right to delete, this black box that is collating so much of data, how are we going to pull that data out and give it back?
Yeah, these are very important questions on privacy, right? And that's why the EU Regulation Act talks about is like, because the basic virtue of this deep neural network, right, is black box. You don't know how it comes to a conclusion, right? And if you prompt and it gives the answer, basically, right? It's very difficult to even take some of those concept of current day privacy to this paradigm, right? In current day privacy, what we talk about is always a data controller or data processor, right? And we also know the controller means somebody who defines means and purpose. If you are prompting AI, so we know that somebody defines the purpose is a controller, right? If you are prompting AI, it is giving the response. So what is your role here? Who is defining purpose here? So if you are prompting, you yourself is prompting and it is giving answer. So you are defining in a way purpose. So would you become a controller here? No, but there are cases like this, right? Imagine AI is more like a normal infrastructure available. And you are using or misusing it. It's up to you how to use or not use. So some of these ideas, and if you see from that perspective, some of the ideas are very difficult to take to the AI paradigm, basically, right? And now we are talking about much more, even our emotions, even sometimes we may not knowing that this data getting captured. Most time it happens like that, basically. In that case, how do you make sure that the privacy is adhered? So this approach that I'm talking here about the Web 5.0, which is built on this foundation of Web 3.0, where user is owner. The ownership lies with the user. How they are making it happen is remain to be seen technologically and also process-wise and also the way the structure is coming in, basically. If you are owner of your data, and also you are gaining out of all of this innovation that we have seen in Web 2, then probably that is a better way of making sure that privacy is also taken care of. And so is the whatever you need, because as a human, you still, somebody and most of us will still like to make use of those capability, right? It's emotional web is coming. We want to use them, right? As an individual also want to use it, but some people which are not really well, for example, not physically well in terms of interacting, engaging, if they can use thought-driven kind of thing, it's much better for them, right? But how do you make sure that this entire development happens on the context of products that user is owner. And this entire Web 3.0 ideas are largely on that basically. So that's why we need to really closely look at how this Web 5.0 is coming and how it is taking care of different expectations and obligations and concepts of privacy that we are thinking in the current age basically. Yeah.
We talk about technology will help. Technology will do something where it can help in enhancing the privacy, but emotions and thoughts are very difficult to control for the individual, right? So how that means it would be a concern, right? Because what actions we take may not be aligned with the thoughts what person has.
Yeah, means we may get to, it may happen like that, right? But and that's what the concerns of this technology like neural net and many other such technology which is evolving could create, right? So we think, but our actions are calibrated. Our thoughts may be very wild, but actions are calibrated, right? So how do you make sure that the actions are calibrated? We are taking actions, so we are responsible, right? And our thoughts are wild, and if somebody else is taking action on our thought, how do responsibility? I mean, one part is responsibility as well, right? Other part is how do you calibrate it? I mean, calibrations, I believe, still possible, right? Because as an individual, I may not be knowing all of those nuances, all of those challenges, all of the problems, basically. There are 1,000 different contexts I need to know, behave in a particular situation. I may fail that as an individual, basically. But system may not fail. Because learning of everybody can be computer codified to calibrate the actions of the systems, basically, right? So eventually, for that matter, there is always a debate about this automated vehicle, people say that at the end of the day, human is different and the automated vehicles are different, like for Tesla or Waymo for that matter, right? Because it may kill people. But good part of machine is, in one instance, it learns a lesson. Every machine learns the lesson, right? Because if one machine or one system learns that this is how I killed a person, next time I should be more careful, every Tesla machine will learn that. Or for that matter, this can be given to everybody and every automated vehicle can learn that basically. It is very difficult with human, right? So calibration or calibrated response, the machine may do much better because their intelligence, their learning is collective learning. Our learning is individual learning basically. Actually, we did a session last time on consciousness and AI, and we talked about it last year, how that will different. So calibration, calibrated response, the machine may do better. But now the question is, who will you make responsible for such kind of action? So the question would come there. Means if you, and that's why some of the compliance requirement, which we try to struggle to how to make Web3 ecosystem more compliant. And some of the compliance requirements, Web2 is much better. You can make these big platforms responsible, right? But how do you make sure that the systems are responsible? And that's why they're saying you need to marry Web2 and Web3, because then there is somebody to make somebody for responsible actually. So this is how the systems are evolving. And I think this basic idea of putting this session together is create awareness about this, but I think we are already past the time 9:30, but I hope this was useful. I know these conversations are very captivating sometimes, but the basic objective of this kind of sessions is you carry this forward and explore more on this basically. Yeah. Means the system will tell you how to think. The system will modulate your behavior, your thinking basically. And there are thinking that people are looking at basically, but we'll discuss on that mind and technology basically.